or I'm not sure. Actually, let me just ask quickly, how many here are developers? Cool, C#, Unity? Yeah? So, if you're gonna be creating a game and you want to market it globally, you have to make sure that it's representational of the population. So we're gonna look at that and how that's really lacking in a lot of games. And then I want to make sure that we look at an action plan. How do we combat the issue of not being able to be inclusive enough and diversified enough with your team? So these are the 3 key takeaways. And so as I was introduced, I am a co-founder of CloudHQ. CloudHQ is a Gmail app company where we produce over 40 different services now. A lot of them are free, so feel free to use them. And we're now like at 1 million users, so we're kind of past the startup stage. I've done this for a while. My first company, like was already explained, was at 17, so this is my 3rd company. I sold my 2nd, and I decided that since I'm in tech, and I see this discrepancy, I decided to do something about it. So I joined in as an administrator for AR, VR women and allies. And I also started to code now in my own VR app. That's just like on the side, and I'm really enjoying this. But I see that there's really a lot of issues here, so I'm gonna cover them, because I'm not sure how well aware you might be of them. So there is an issue. So let's take a look at Silicon Valley and this issue right here. We have issues across Tesla, Oculus. Now that Facebook has kind of distanced themselves from its previous CEO, I think that might be a little bit better. But there was like heavy issues here with sexism and diversity. And of course we have issues directly with Magic Leap. I mean, like a lot of the VR industry is kind of like the beginning of the tech industry. So the tech industry is kind of rolling forward along, and we're now starting to become aware, but VR is kind of latent. We have like this catch-up we have to do. So we have this that we see all the time. Google with this ideological echo chamber, which I wrote a lot about. This is like really a big issue where they're specifically saying that if you're not of a specific background, gender, race, you just should not be coding, which, as we all know, is a fallacy. So let's take a look at that. Specifically, this is a McKinsey analysis, and we look across the board, we can see that for more diverse groups, regardless of what country you want to go into, we can see that there's an increase of productivity. So this actually proves that the more diverse your team is, the more profitable your company will be. It's a no-brainer to a lot of people, but still to some other people, they're not aware of it. So if you want to create an app that goes global, that grows, you need to have people who are on your team who represent the global population. And so we see that users are growing every year, which is great. We finally achieved a large number this year, and we believe it's going to even grow further. And I want to actually take a look at the market itself. So let's take a look actually at population. So this is specifically Silicon Valley, and we can see that there's an increase, a large increase across the board, except for the white race. So white race is actually declining in San Francisco. And as there's more mixes, we can see that it's becoming more and more diverse. So if we're becoming more and more diverse as a society, are we being diverse when we're creating games? We'll take a look. So we're looking here, this is actually really cool. Russell in Orlando is just, he's a university student, and he created this study. In 2014, he took the top 50 games in VR, and he looked at the protagonists. And of all the protagonists, I mean, if we look at this, it's ridiculous. If we look at here, we have Asian, Latinx, and white females, and black protagonists. All of them combined doesn't even equal the amount of non-human protagonists in VR games. So does this look like our previous graph, where we see a diverse population? No. It shows constantly a much larger variety of white male protagonists in VR apps. So how are we going to appeal to other users if we're not emulating them, if we're not showing that they're involved in this game? And it brings me actually to a female problem as well. So in 1984, there were 37% of women who graduated from computer science. And constantly it's been on a decline. And it's continuously being on a decline. And we have to figure out why. So we have a race issue and we have also a gender issue. Where are the female engineers? Well, let's see what's going on. We look at all across the sciences, females are continuously getting their diplomas, except for computer science. It drops drastically and it starts around 1980s. So let's take a look. We have popular culture. A lot of movies are out now. We have Revenge of the Nerds. We have all these different kinds of movies. A lot of you may remember these movies. They were extremely popular. And when we look at it, we can see that we have the male protagonists who become nerds, and they win over like the hot women, and that's how they get success. So women are now looking at this and saying, oh well, maybe I don't have to become an engineer because I'll just date one, or something of that nature. Like, it's not being marketed to women. You're not just seeing women geeks who are becoming successful. You're seeing male geeks, and this is all like very deeply ingrained in our culture. Okay, so this might really surprise you, but females are actually very, very big gamers. It depends, however, in what. So, females are represented here by the orange bar chart, and males the blue, as we can see. So, match 3 are like tile games. So, maybe not necessarily tic-tac-toe, but like gem games or things that match and have a little bit more spatial recognition or pattern recognition. Females really largely prefer that than males do. So 69% of them are gamers versus 31% of males. It's interesting. And when we look at family simulations or farming simulations, that's also something that they prefer. But when we look at first-person shooters, boom, we have males who want 90%, who are playing, or the users of first-person shooters are 93% of the players. So we see a drastic difference. We see here that women are gamers, but games that are appealing to them are not really showing up in VR right now. Same with sports. Okay, so this is so Jessica Outlaw, she's actually in the AR VR Women Allies group on Facebook, and she created this study, and it was funded by Pluto VR, which we'll talk about also in a little minute. And we look at this and we see, okay, why do people use VR? So when we're looking at this, we see that primarily they use VR to spend time with friends and to meet new people. And, well actually they don't, sorry, they use VR to spend time with friends for a certain percentage of them. And also even smaller percentage for meeting new people. And I want to take a look specifically at some social VR, which is very hot right now, and we're going to see how will this play out. So let's take a look. This is kind of staggering. So we see here that in social VR, the reason that people don't necessarily like social VR very much is because they get attacked. I don't know, how many people here have tried social VR? Cool. So out of curiosity, what have you used? VR chat, cool. You? Altspace. Anybody else? Okay. So VR chat is kind of similar a little bit to Altspace, but Altspace is very interesting because Altspace, right now, what they've done is they've kind of increased their quote-unquote security. So when you go into an Altspace room now, you have other avatars who are people who are going to help you navigate through it. And the reason why they did that is because there was a lot of harassment on Altspace. You have different avatars, and as soon as there's a female voice, all of a sudden other engagers, I should call them maybe, could tell you're a female, and so you might have this weird kind of difference in how you engage with somebody. Like for example, when I was in Altspace, I found it a little bit annoying because I had this guy who wouldn't like leave me alone all night, and he kept on chatting over and over, and he wasn't being rude, but actually I'm sure he was drunk, and I'm sure he just wanted to talk to a female. So at that time I didn't realize how easily I could block him, but now I know how. So there's a lot of ways we have to kind of navigate social VR so we don't have any issues where you feel harassed. But especially in social VR, especially hiding behind avatars, this is going to be kind of prevalent. So we really have to be aware of that. All right, so actually the second picture is the events of AR/VR Women and Allies, and they're in the middle. And we connect very much with their avatars. So in Altspace, yes, you can disguise yourself and become a robot if you want to, and you can do different characters. Like your chat here, there was something really funny on the end. I don't know if you know about this particular cartoon, which I'm forgetting the name of, but it's really cute. But in any case, the point is that here we have all these different setups, and we know that people are worried about social VR because they don't want to be harassed. So Altspace, okay, what did they do? They hired some extra people to sit down in the room with you to make sure that you feel comfortable and that you're navigating your way properly. We have Facebook Spaces, we have Pluto VR. Pluto VR isn't really new. I don't know if anybody of you have heard of them. They're also out of San Francisco. And we have VR Chat, which I think is really popular too. But I think that the winner of all of them is going to be Facebook Spaces. Why? Because you can invite up to 2 other friends with you, and that's it. There's not going to be other people. People can't come into your room unless you invite them there. And that might be a really good key way to make sure that people don't feel harassed. So this is actually really key. Look at the bigger players in the space. Yes, Altspace is very large, and so is VRChat, but look at the major players in the space, and I would say Facebook is certainly one of them. So they are recognizing the situation, and they've built a whole room around it to avoid the problem of harassment. There's a lot of information here, but I want to explain to you that diversity is more than just race, age, gender. We hear a lot about it, but I also want to cover some other things. And I know that a lot of you might feel perhaps a little bit overwhelmed with this list. So I want to assure you at the end you'll have a link that I'll give you, and you can have access to this entire presentation to look at afterwards. But I want to make sure that we take a look at different kinds of oppression. We have class oppression, we have age oppression, we have immigrant status is such a huge deal, especially in the United States right now. We have a lot of different kinds of groups that are not being addressed, not in tech and certainly not in VR. So I'm going to move to the next slide. And look at also a different kind of difference that not a lot of people really think about. And it's neurodiversity. And it's kind of a new sort of diversity, which I think is also something that needs to come into play. So when you're looking for engineers to hire for your games, what you'll see is you have different people who have issues like ADHD or autism or certain sensitivity issues. This is really key because they can help you in ways that regular people simply cannot. They don't see things in different ways. So ADHD, they'll tell you in a second whether or not your game is boring because they're not going to want to stay in their headset if they find it boring after a certain amount of time. And autistic people are excellent because they can see the most minute details that you may not see. And so these make excellent engineers, excellent. And a lot of times ADHD or autism, we're going to see that they have other issues like sensitivity issues, like sound sensitivity issues. That's also really key. I mean, right now, if I were to scream in here, your ears would hurt. But you may not realize that if you're always blasting your music, let's say, in your ears, so they'll tell you, hey, that might sound normal to you, but it doesn't sound normal to me. You need to really lower the decibels. Or they'll explain to you what doesn't work and what doesn't. That's really key too. And also perception sensitivities. So a lot of time we have VR content in the form of 360 movies that are in VR apps. And you might have somebody in front of you who's dancing or singing. You really have to make sure that there's a perception of how far somebody is from you so that the user still feels comfortable. So this is also a very big one because not a lot of people think of personal space, and personal space varies by culture. So that's also something to look into. And this is really interesting just to look at the top trends of VR. So we have 360 video, absolutely. I mean, even in my app, which is just a game, you need 360 video in the background. Like, you need to have something that kind of plays into the environment that you're in. And so we have content now that comes into it, and content is really important. I'm going to focus just because I know of time. We have a lot to cover. But fitness VR, take a look at that because I see that trending a lot. We have Beat Saber. We have like a lot of different kinds of fitness VR apps that are really interesting. And really and actually, if we look at Beat Saber, I didn't do this for this presentation, but I bet you that if you look at Beat Saber versus Skyrim, Skyrim is not as popular as Beat Saber because Beat Saber is more non-avatar specific. So it might appeal to females, it might appeal to males, different races, different kinds of diversities, whereas Skyrim is like very male, like you're basically killing people, and you're represented as a very large, muscular person. So when we're looking at Skyrim versus Beat Saber, look at that. They're both doing relatively well because of fitness VR really on the rise of trends, but Beat Saber is certainly much more popular than Skyrim, and I expect it to continue to be so. So if you're planning to develop any games, and you want to do it that's fitness specific, I would look at making sure that it appeals to everybody. And then I still think social VR is still very popular. I think that just has to be done in a different way. So Facebook Spaces is addressing that, and all other VR chats are also, like VR chats addressing it, all space, but that too I see being very heavy on the rise. And healthcare and education I see being really high on the rise too, because these are two areas that are extremely popular with the female gender versus the male gender for games. So if we do that, we'll see games being adopted by women as well. And of course, we all know that BCI and VR is going to be like amazing. So when that comes out, everybody's going to want to see what's happening there. Still, I don't feel like it engages very well yet when you put on headsets that measure BCIs. But that measure brainwaves. But that'll be, I think, more developed in the future. Okay, so if we want VR, we're here in this industry because we want VR to succeed. But it can't succeed if we keep developing games that don't appeal to everybody. So if you want it to be big, not just your app, but VR as an industry, we have to make sure that what we develop appeals to everybody. And it includes white males too. I'm not excluding them. I'm just going to make sure that it appeals to everybody. And then your products won't reach mass market. They're not appealing to diverse populations. That's kind of redundant there. But the meaningful inclusion, let's say you want to have somebody on your team who is a female, don't say, oh, yeah, we've got one female on our team, score. It doesn't work that way. There's no tokenism. You don't want to have like one African American on your team. You want to make sure that there's a few people. Yes, I talk a lot, I see. I just got delivered water. But anyways, my point is that don't tokenize the system. The system can only work if we don't tokenize it. So I'm going to look at that with you in just a minute for an action plan. And here we go. So when you're hiring, make sure that you hire diversely. I know in South Korea it's a little bit difficult because it's a very homogeneous population. I think it's like 98-point-something% Korean here. And so it might be difficult to hire engineers who are not necessarily Korean. But then look at remote workers. Like I have a few remote workers because I want to make sure that I have different representation globally in my company. And so I make sure I do that. So maybe that's something that South Koreans might want to do when they're creating their games. And then the Rooney Rule is really something that's widely adopted by all the major players like Google, Facebook, Salesforce. For every position that becomes open, make sure that you have at least one underrepresented group that gets interviewed. Like African Americans in the United States are 16% less likely to get interviewed just because they're African Americans. So make sure you're including them because they could be amazing employees. You want them on your team. And then of course, you want to make sure that there's mentorship opportunities because once you've hired somebody, you've hired somebody who's diverse, awesome. You want to make sure that they're staying. So you want to make sure that somebody in a senior level is mentoring that employee. Otherwise, that employee is going to leave, especially if they're good. You want them to feel connected to your company. And if they don't, they will leave. Just to mention, you should always get employee feedback. So in my company, I make it a policy that every week I check in with my entire team one-on-one. Granted, we're still a relatively small team. We're 10 employees now. But make sure that you are checking in with them and that they feel engaged with what they're doing and that they feel included in the company and are aligned with your values. And you should be aligned with theirs too, just to touch on that. And so we have unconscious bias. We all have it. Whether we like it or not, we all have it. So we have to address it. Specifically with unconscious bias in the United States, we have a huge discrepancy. For every dollar that a white male makes, you've got a Hispanic who will earn only 70 cents, and that's Hispanic males. And then African, well, it's black, it's also including other origins, not just African Americans, who are only earning 59 cents to the dollar. So that doesn't really work very well for inclusion. They're never going to feel like they're part of your company if they realize that they're not getting paid the same, and they're not. So as business owners or as game developers, you will have an opportunity to make this change. So I want to just look through the 4 specific things of unconscious bias that's really intrinsic to the idea of what it is, the definition of what it is. The first one is confirmation. So, let's say somebody thinks that, oh, well, this particular group is going to be excellent in math. They must be excellent in math, and they're going to keep giving tests and tests and tests until the score is high enough that it proves their hypothesis. That's confirmation bias. So be aware of that. And then we have effective heuristics. So you're judging a book by its cover. Sometimes when I'm interviewing in one particular, I'll tell you a real story. In one particular instance, I needed a designer, a graphic designer. I needed more movies, and I had to hire, but the person that I was going to hire looked funny to me. She looked different. And in a way that I was kind of apprehensive. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm not sure how she'll feel comfortable, but I clearly saw that she looked different. And if I just judged her by her cover, then maybe I wouldn't give her a job. Well, let me tell you something, because today she is like a star performer in my company. And without her in my company, I think that the company would not do as well at all. And in fact, just prior to coming out here, I gave her a raise because I thought it was time. She's been with the company for 8 months, and she is like a key part of the company. So make sure that you don't judge a book by its cover, because they could be like your star employees. Then there's also expectation anchor. So you have an expectation about somebody. It could be good, it could be bad, but there's an expectation, and that alters how you perceive them. That also is something that you have to really be aware of. Try to push that aside. Maybe they're of the same culture as you, and so you feel comfortable, or whatever the case is. Don't let that cloud what really is happening. Like, give them tests to do, see data-wise how they perform. Maybe you'll see then that you might have these expectations of people, but they're really not living up specifically to those expectations, but you might think in advance that they do. And then intuition. A lot of CEOs I have met, they'll tell me, oh, I hired somebody because I had a great feeling about them. Like, what is that? That's I can't swear, but I really want to. It doesn't make sense. Like, that's not at all logical. Don't hire based on a feeling. You're wasting your onboarding time. You're wasting a lot of things because, forget the feeling. You want to make sure that the employee is going to perform. That's the number one goal of you when you're hiring somebody. You want to make sure that employee is going to perform. And so make sure that you don't have any of these biases now that we've covered it. And Facebook has been very generous in allowing us to access. That link on the bottom is their link to allow you to access a test to make sure that you're aware, like it's training a little bit, to understand your unconscious bias and get over it. Okay, so we have barriers. So I want to make sure that we have, these are just some ideas you might want to incorporate depending how large your companies are. So for example, for ADHD team members, you want to make sure that they have like standing desks or maybe like little wiggle chairs or something so that they're comfortable to be able to continue working as much as possible, especially if you're hiring them for perhaps engineering that they do well in their tests because they're going to be like really, really key to you. So make sure that they're comfortable. And then you want to make sure that there's equal pay for equal work. So if you have 2 video graphic designers, you want to make sure if one is male and one is female that they're getting the pay the same. Or if they're Hispanic or African American or white, you want to make sure that they're getting paid the same. So equal pay for equal work is a very common kind of line that a lot of activists in the United States are using, and rightfully so. And then, of course, you want to make sure that there's online training resources for continuing education. It's really important to always invest in your employees. You want to make sure that they can do different things. So a video graphic designer that I hired, the videographer, she's now taking 360 video classes so that I can have her move on to like the next step. I'm investing in her. And I ask that all of you who are owners of companies also invest in your employees in whatever ways you see that they can benefit, because if you do that, they will be super loyal to you and it will just work out really well for your own productivity of your company. And then offer specific, actually just to touch on online training resources, it's really important that it's online because a lot of people can't work after work hours. They have families maybe, they have different things happening. So you want to make sure that you're sensitive to that and you're still giving them the resources that they need. And then of course, we already know that females are not as interested in computer science and we hope that that changes. But until that does, we know that it's low. And it's the same with minorities. In their schools, they don't have access to computer science courses. So make sure that if you want all of your company to be like really, really aware of one another, like you want maybe your marketing team to also be coding, maybe, or like you want something where there's a crossover, because that's where you get the most amazing ideas, when there's crossover of teams. So if you do that, you might want to make sure that they get computer science training. And then, you want to make sure, like, let's say somebody who's religious, you give them like the Friday off if they have, let's say, the Sabbath or whatever it is that they're doing. Make sure that they're just accommodate your team. These are just ideas. Parental leave is huge, not just for females, but for males too, because hey, they're fathers. They should be able to bond with their kids. And so I want to make sure that these are just some ideas you should consider. To be able to make sure that there's a way to kind of really break down these barriers. And then I want to make sure that we know, especially according to McKinsey, if we have diverse companies and we are inclusive of everybody, we hear their voices, we treat them with respect, you're going to have an increase of productivity by like 35%. It's huge. So anybody who doesn't have a diverse team, they're nuts. They're not wanting to grow their company. And what's worse is if you don't have a diverse team and you think that a VC will want to invest in you, guess again. Because they're losing out on a 35% investment right there if you're not diverse. So this is also really interesting. If you plan to go for VC funding, you're going to want to make sure that you have a diverse team because you want a lot of different ideas. You don't want to just create a small game that gets put out and that just gets played in South Korea. You want to put out a game that gets played globally. You want people to clamor for your game. So if you want that, hire a diverse team. And with that, does anybody have any questions? Did I go? Okay, good.
I always do.
Sure.
I try to get one. So, as much as Silicon Valley in particular has talked about diversity, they are horrible at diversity. What are you seeing companies do, the bigger companies, right? It's easy for companies like ours, because we're small companies, we can be diverse.
Mm-hmm.
And we're building diverse.
Yeah.
What are you seeing the big companies doing to really push these ideas along and really not just have a head of diversity who gives presentations?
Yeah, that's a great point. So different companies have different things that make them stars in that particular area. Salesforce is a star for creating equal pay for equal work. So they adjusted all of the salaries so that anybody who's doing the same job is all paid the same way. So that's very actionable, and I really want to make sure that they get huge props for that. And Facebook is really trying to make sure that there's unconscious bias training, so they're more welcoming. Google is also trying a lot. I think Google is so large that it's hard for them, I think, because they have YouTube, and YouTube is a different facet from them, and there they have a lot of issues, I think, between right-wing and left-wing thinking, and to be able to find the middle ground is very difficult. So they have a lot of training sessions, and that's what really this was for you. So training sessions, so you're a little bit more aware of how to hire. So I see that a lot of large companies are doing things, they are very proactive, and I also see a lot of companies that are just brushing it under the rug. And that includes Magic Leap, unfortunately. And I know we're all excited to see what they're about to release. I know I am. You know, I downloaded their last update, like to go play with. Fine, but like in the company, they have blatant sexism, they have a lot of racism. Like, this is not just something that I'm judging. This is, you know, on the news. And so we can see that there's different companies doing different things and others that try to brush it under the rug. There's so many companies in Silicon Valley. It's hard to say, oh, well, they're doing this. Some do something about it. I think the better ones do. And the ones that don't, well, they don't. And if they don't, I'm sure they will not succeed. Look at Upload VR. Did they succeed? They just closed their doors last month. You know, so there's different kinds of companies that are doing different things.
I can completely appreciate the friction that you encounter. It's frustrating as it is when you're trying to implement training, and it's acting almost as a band-aid solution for a problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. What would you see as potential ways of trying to tackle the problem at its core in terms of people's perceptions and beliefs about, you know, how logical equality should be, as opposed to obviously having to take them through this is what you should be doing? How do we capture that at its root?
At its root, it's going to be very difficult because at its root, it's down to the actual person. So that will be very difficult to do, but as a group, it's possible through making sure you have company meetings, maybe like a weekend getaway or a company barbecue, and you make sure that maybe unlikely people are paired up. So what you can do is say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to pair up with you, and I'm female or male, and then I'm going to spend maybe an hour with you, and we're going to get to know each other. Well, that kind of breaks down a lot of barriers right there, because a lot of time people just don't want to mix. So if you force mixing within a company, people will see, oh, this person's really intelligent, and I could use that person in this project, and it's reciprocal. And breaking down the barrier by just making sure that there's engagement between unlikely groups in your company, that's also really key. So that helps. Mentorship programs really are successful. And really defining what your goals are and your values are as a company is also really key. Anybody else? No? Okay.
I have one more, if nobody else has a question.
There.
So, as a father of a daughter, what do I do?
Like for social, for tech, for VR, for
Well, just for, I have a daughter who doesn't want to do computer stuff.
Yeah, I bet.
I try a lot. It's been interesting to look at in the band, none of the girls in the jazz band will do a solo. And it's their choice.
They're nervous.
So what do we do as parents to help, as parents of both sons and daughters?
Yeah. Well, I think that growth only comes about through change, right? So put them in an uncomfortable situation and let them grow from that. So if you don't do that, they'll never realize, oh, you know what, it's just a little higher rock. If they don't have that opportunity, sign them up for things and give them opportunities to do different things, maybe reward them. So I'm also a mother. And I have a child that I have to work with a reward system. So anytime he does something I want him to do, I'll reward him handsomely. And it's painful in my wallet, but I do it, you know. And that way, it works out really well that he tries different things. Otherwise, he won't. You know, so that's something that's really important. And always just be there for her. And I don't know you personally, but you seem like you're very, you know, aware. And so the best thing you can do is be aware and always encourage her to move forward, to do something different. Maybe sit down and say, hey, let's watch a movie together. And make sure that movie is a documentary about how tech can help you succeed in future careers. You know, like do something where you're kind of planning things and maybe don't let her in on it so she can hear it from someone else. Because she's never going to listen to you. I mean, I think you know that. I know that. Like, if you're a parent, you know that. You need somebody else to say it. So make sure that the message that they're receiving is just really supportive, and that way maybe she can start flourishing. And anytime she does show any kind of likeness towards something, you know, encourage her to go after it. You want to?
Well, thank you very much.
Sure.
We appreciate you joining us here in Seoul.
Thank you, thank you. And if you go to Get Talk, is it on the website maybe, on the last page? No. So if you go to http // not the S, but regular http, gettalk.ai/VR Summit, you'll be able to get this talk. And we'll have it up on the website for you as well. So you can access it whenever you want. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So,